Good morning, everyone. I know it's been a few weeks since I had done a video, but I had some interesting information occur over the past couple of days, and I just wanted to relay that to the Chase community. Some of you may find it interesting, and it's going to be related to Forrest Fenn's rescue, the second time he was shot down. You could read about that story in either The Thrill or The Chase. Or he also published it online. It's called My War for Me, and basically, he talked about the second time that he was shot down and how he was rescued out of the jungles in Laos. Last week, I managed to get in touch with somebody that's part of the same team that had rescued Forrest Fenn. The person that I talked to gave me some information, and basically, I want to pass this along to you. Eventually, I'll tell you who that person is. I don't want to do it right now because I'm still communicating with them. And what I'm going to eventually try to do is get them to do an interview with me, if possible. But if not, I just wanted to discuss a couple things that they had pointed out, and I'm sure that you might find this interesting. So, as we know, Forrest Fenn was shot down on December 20th, 1968, in Laos when he was on a bombing mission on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And he was rescued the following day, December 21st, 1968, and he was taken to Nakhon Phanom in Thailand. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then you could read about the rest of the story, as I said before, his friend. But there's a couple of things I wanted to show about this that he had discussed with me, and I just wanted to relay this information to you. So let's take a look at the picture that Forrest Fenn has on pages 92 and 93 in The Thrill of the Chase. This is that picture, and basically it's spread across two pages. This picture is online. It's out there if you want to check it out. Anyhow, I have the names of all of the people that I took from Forrest Fenn's book. They were all part of the mission, though. The mission consisted of four planes: Sandy 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you had Jolly Green 16, which was referred to as Low Bird. That's the actual helicopter that basically took Forrest Fenn out of the jungle. And then we have Jolly Green 36, which was High Bird. So I want to make that clear because there was some confusion that these people were all actually on the helicopter that rescued Forrest Fenn. That's not true. They were all part of the mission, but they were not on there. Now, just from left to right, of course, we have Forrest Fenn, okay? And then here we have Lieutenant Colonel John M. Carlson. He was the pilot of Sandy 3. And then we have Lieutenant James L. Jamerson. He was the pilot of Sandy 1. And then we have Lieutenant Colonel John H.I. Morse. He was the pilot of Low Bird, which is the one that I said extracted Forrest Fenn. Okay, this guy with his head down is Airman First Class Robert J. Sully Jr. He's what they call a PJ, or a parachute jumper. He's part of a para-rescue team, and he was on the Jolly Green 16 that extracted Forrest Fenn. And then we have here this guy in the background with the hat on. That's Lieutenant Commander Lance Egan. He was the pilot of High Bird, Jolly Green 36. And then we have uh, Major Sergeant Lee R. Maples, who was the flight engineer of Jolly Green 16 Low Bird. So in this picture, the only three people that were actually on the helicopter that extracted him is this guy, of course. This is the one that rescued him, and then Morse, okay? And then, of course, Forrest Fenn. Those are the only three that were on here. The other guys were pilots and other aircraft that were part of the mission. And I'm bringing that up because the person that I talked to, he had never seen this picture. Okay, now he knows these people in the picture. He definitely knows this guy here who rescued Forrest, because this guy was also a PJ, and they were in the same graduation team together. There was basically a group of guys that were at what they call NKP. That was their base in Thailand, and they would just basically grab whatever helicopters are available, and then they would have the escort planes, and then they would go in and do the extraction. Okay, so they weren't really assigned to a specific helicopter like a pilot may be assigned to a specific airplane. And his question when he looked at this picture, he goes, "Wow, they would never send that many officers on a single aircraft, and that's not the case. So when Forrest says they're part of the team, yeah, they're part of the team, but these were not all the men that were on the aircraft, on the helicopter that rescued him. There may have been others that were on there that were part, obviously, assisting the crew, but they would not be in this photo. One There's a couple of interesting things that he had told me because he was in Vietnam from 19. He was in the Air Force. Let me correct that. From 1967 to 1971, the person that I talked to, and he was on many of these rescues. As a matter of fact, that's all he did was rescue people out of Laos once they put him into Vietnam. And so he wasn't on this specific mission. He was, but he was in the same team, okay, and he knew these same people. But he said it was strange because he goes, "There's no way that these people were all on the same aircraft. They would never take that many high-ranking officers and put them in a single aircraft like that, unless it was, of course, a special mission or they were transporting or something like that." So the other thing that he indicated to me is the guillotine comment. Now, a lot of people have already figured this out, but if you look in the 2006 My War for Me, Forrest does not mention the guillotine, and he names Maples as the guy that yanked him in the helicopter. Well, in the book, The Thrill of the Chase, of course, he says it's Sully that yanked him into the helicopter, and Maples was operating the cable. That's actually true, except the thing with the guillotine. Okay, there is a guillotine on these helicopters. Perhaps not all of them, though. And essentially, what it is, I believe it's a charge that'll blow off if the helicopter were to get tangled into something. The cable, they would basically blow the line, and then the helicopter can get away if they were under fire or something like that. But not all of them are equipped with that helicopter. That may or may not be true, where Forrest Fenn is saying that the Maples had his hand on the guillotine. The helicopter that they used may or may not have had one. But the person who pulled him in was definitely Sully. It wasn't Maples. So I don't know why Forrest had done that. We were speculating about it, and the fact is that all of these men would be wearing helmets, and Forrest wouldn't be able to identify any of them when he was being extracted. Certainly, he would have found it out after the fact. The other thing he pointed out to me is that the way some of these guys are dressed here, they normally, well, maybe the pilots, but not the other guys, they would usually be in fatigues and they're unmarked. That's intentional. You didn't go out in the field and get lowered down on the cable with markings on you that would indicate you're with the Navy or the Air Force or whatever. They just didn't do that. They weren't, I believe they weren't allowed to do that. So when they were actually out, boots on the ground, so to say, they would dress differently than when they would be doing something else in the military. Um, so they would have their dog tags to identify them, but they wouldn't have anything like that. The other thing he brought up to me, and he was pretty adamant about this. Now, I know that in certain areas they would name, give nicknames to aircraft. Certainly, pilots would do it all the time of regular airplanes. However, he was familiar with all of the low birds and high birds, being a PJ like this guy, and all of them that were at NKP, none of them had any names on them. So Candy Ann is something that either Forrest Fenn made up for some reason as a hint. I don't know. We don't know. But as far as this guy could tell me, every single one of the Jolly Green Giants, and they had a few of them that he flew on, none of them had names. None of them. So this Candy Ann thing was made up. Perhaps we don't know. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of them may be named that were at other places. For example, they might have had some helicopters down in South Vietnam, but up at Thailand, at that base, the helicopters that would have rescued Forrest Fenn, as far as he's concerned, they did not have names on them. And some of them did not have the guillotine, so it was odd. But he had stated that Forrest Fenn might have not known who they were at the time because they would all be wearing helmets that had boom mics on them. And that would include this guy here that actually rescued him. They also sometimes would have a photographer actually on the helicopter. And when they would get back from the mission, the photographer would take a picture of the men that were part of the rescue. But this is odd in the fact that, like I said, they wouldn't usually do it like this. They would just take a picture of the 5 or 6 people that were actually on the helicopter itself. They wouldn't take the pilots from all the other planes unless there was something special about it. Of course, I don't know about that. Um, I certainly hope to talk more about that with that person, and I'm trying to do it live on my show. This way, people can ask questions because it's pretty rare when you're going to get a hold of somebody that was on a team that extracted people like this, and I would really like if he would do that. And I want to do it in such a way that people can ask questions. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it off, so that's why I'm showing you what I do know from him now. So let's take a look at another picture because, as you can see, the person who rescued Forrest is bent over. You can't see his face. Well, I have personal photographs from this person that I talked to that does reveal his face. And I just wanted to show that to you. And also, I'm going to show you where Forrest Fenn's plane was at. And I can't take the credit for that. The picture that I'm going to show you came from the military, and it was taken. The pictures were taken from Jolly Green 36 that was up high. So it would be a public picture that you could certainly request. But I actually got the information from the article where the man who found a piece of Forrest Fenn's plane. I know you guys remember that story. So he's got an article about that, and I'll link that to you below in case you haven't heard of it. But basically, some guy on the East Coast found out where his plane was and actually made the trip to Vietnam and went there to Laos and got the piece and gave it to Forrest Fenn. It's a really interesting story. So just he doesn't give the coordinates out, but I have the coordinates, and I'm going to give them to you. It's plus or minus maybe 100 or 200 feet, but I'll show you where it occurred in Google Earth. So let me show you a picture of what Robert J. Sully looks like. This is taken in Florida. This is when the whole team of this is probably 1967, I believe he told me, in Florida after these guys graduated training as PJs and other whatever they were training for that was in the to be part of the CSAR, combat search and rescue teams that they were. So all of these men ended up in Vietnam, shortly after this picture was taken. This is the man that's bending over right here, Robert Sully. This is him. I'm sure of that. So the guy that's bending over, that's what he looks like. And like I said, this picture is when they graduated, before they were being sent. And I got another picture of the same team here. And here we have that a different picture, the same school that they were at. They're on the bleachers this time. This is Sully up here at the top. This is the guy and incidentally, he's 21 years old, basically, plus or minus a year. He might be like 20 and a half or 21 and a half, somewhere within there, but that's his age. Back when this photo was taken in 1967. Oh, again, this is the guy that yanked Forrest Fenn into the helicopter. And the person that I talked to was on the same team, graduated with them. They bunked together. Basically, all of those guys were the same. Some of these were assigned to different areas. Some of them might have went to South Vietnam. But Sully and a couple of other guys bunked over at NKP, and they were basically only in charge of the rescues in Laos. So I want to make that clear too. Some of these guys ended up at the different places in Vietnam, and they would do search and rescues in different areas because it wasn't only Laos where pilots would go down. But that's where Sully was, and that's where this other person was. Uh, Now, let me show you just a couple of pictures with the rescue. Okay, this picture again was taken from the Hybrid, and it's looking down. You can see that the helicopter extracting Forrest Fenn is right here when they took the picture, and you can see where it is. Like I said, the guy that's in the military that found Forrest Fenn's plane crashed into another karst. I believe it's to the north of here. North would be kind of to the right, almost would be north. Here we're kind of looking west, northwest. But Forrest Fenn's plane crashed into the cars. Then that guy, I forgot his name, so forgive me, but I'll put a link to his article. He went and found a part of Forrest Fenn's plane. Needless to say, though, this is the one that rescued Forrest Fenn. He was right in these trees, right below here. Forrest had to like climb up. He was down lower, or he was up higher. He had to climb down, I guess, or up, or I don't know. The helicopter couldn't get close to these walls, so Forrest had to manipulate himself to get down. And when they're here, they have, I think it's approximately 300 feet of cable maximum that they can release. Um, and they almost extended it fully to get down the forest. These trees are like 150 feet tall. So that's where Forrest was extracted from the helicopter right here. And then the other one was circling just above. And let me show you now on Google Earth where that is. So here we are in Google Earth, and this is where Forrest Fenn was based down here by Tuiwa. Tuiwa is right here, and Forrest Fenn's base was right down here. You could see the runways and stuff that were there. So that's you can also refer to my 109 video, and you'll learn more about the 109 East versus West. So this red line here is approximately the flight that he would have taken. And as you can see, he always talks about that special place in South Vietnam that he always promised that he would come back. That was up here, and Forrest Fenn congratulated me on discovering where the waterfall was down here and where the French grave is that he tripped over. So I know that's correct in this area, and Forrest knew I knew where it was. So just to give you an idea of what's going on here, this red line here is the basically the border, and up here is North Vietnam. This is South Vietnam. In here, this is all the country of Laos. Okay, so Forrest Fenn was shot down over here and near Sapone. Now the base where all of those guys are at is over here in Thailand, and basically they flew and extracted Forrest Fenn from here. When Forrest Fenn mentioned Sapone, it's right here. Now it's just called Sapone. So this is where Forrest Fenn was rescued from, right here. His plane crashed into this wall, and right down here, I may be wrong about that. It might have crashed into this one of these two or three over here, and that guy ended up going down here and finding a piece of Forrest Fenn's plane. But Forrest Fenn was actually extracted from right here. So that picture that you're looking at was taken kind of like that in that orientation. So as you can see where north is over there, that's kind of the way the picture was taken by the military. And of course it was tilted back. But that's where Forrest Fenn was extracted from right there. And like I said, I'll just give you a north orientation. That's where he was shot down, so that'll give you some idea when you're looking at my war for me as to what was going on. And you know, the Ho Chi Minh Trail went all up and down here. Cut across, and they would bring it all through the jungle, all the way down to South Vietnam. It's a pretty wide swath, and it was all kinds of trails. So when Forrest Fenn talks about it, that was all throughout here. But that's where he was shot down. Roughly 340 miles from his base is where he was shot down. So that's really all I wanted to show you. I'm hoping to be able to do like a live interview with that guy. I was on the phone with him for two phone calls. He ended up calling me back, and he sent me a bunch of other pictures. And but we talked for roughly 2 hours the first time, and then he called me back like a half hour later, 45 minutes later, and we talked for another half hour. He's a really, really nice guy. I thanked him for his services and stuff, and of course, and yeah, I mean, I was really surprised that he had gotten back to me, and definitely that he called me. But it was enlightening. A lot of the stuff that he told me was extremely interesting because, like I said, he was always based up here, and he was always part of the rescues up here. And it was just cool to be able to talk to somebody. I know we have another article, not an article, but a video out there from one of the pilots. That was part of the team. I believe he was Sandy 2. He was in the Sandy 2 plane. He's not pictured in Forrest Fenn's thing. Richard Hall, I think his name was. That's a really good video if you want to go watch that too on YouTube. I think I'll link it. I've seen it before, and many of you have seen it before. He basically discusses the mission. Well, this guy discussed it with me from a different perspective. Bill's perspective was of course, he's an officer, he's a pilot, and he was in one of the planes that was going with the Jolly Green Giant. But this guy was actually on, the Jolly Green Giants. That's what he did, and he was not on the one that pulled Forrest Fenn out though. So it was interesting to get another perspective for somebody like that. And like I said, I'm gonna talk to him again. I don't know if I'll do it today. Make it over the next couple of days. I'm gonna see if he's willing to do a live Zoom. I'm not gonna have an open panel. I will have a couple people on there. Definitely Steve Klein, because Steve Klein was the one who basically. I was talking to Steve Klein. We were discussing that picture with Forrest Fenn, and Steve had suggested a few things, and then I took it upon myself to go and try to search while Steve was working, and I actually located the guy, and I was able to get in touch with him. So Steve Klein would be there, and I'd like to have Street would be there because Street was actually a military guy, and he might enjoy talking to this guy. And the same thing with Kiwi's Road. Now Kiwi, you know, he wasn't part of any rescue team, but what I'm trying to do is get a couple of other military guys on there with Tim in the Zoom, and we could just throw questions out. And this guy is a talker. Okay, he's really a talker. He talks more than me, but he was really telling me some really cool things, stuff that doesn't have anything to do with Forrest Fenn. But it was just really cool. The guy had a very interesting life. He's a hero in my book, and certainly was in Forrest's book. And it's really interesting to talk to somebody like that. So I really hope that I'm able to pull it off. If not, I at least wanted to show you guys this much. And just out of respect, I'm not going to say who he was for his privacy concerns. If we go live on Zoom, obviously, you'll know who it is. And I really hope I can pull that off. And I want to do it live if possible. If not, what I'll do is I'll do a live show, and you guys could come up with questions, and then I'll ask him the questions and have him answer them live. Well, I'll record it, and then I'll put up a recording of that shows him basically answering the questions and talking with you guys. I'm not sure if he wants to do it live. He's an elderly man. And like I said, just out of respect of his privacy, I'm not going to give out his name because I know how crazy some of the searchers are, and I don't want people doing crazy things. So this really has nothing to do with Forrest, other than the fact that he's describing what went on and how the rescues happened, and he happens to know Sully. So this is more for posterity reasons and more for to kind of give back to our veterans that served for us, and just these are kind of the unsung heroes, the people that went in and did the rescues for the pilots. And sometimes, of course, it was not always successful. The pilot would have died either on the way down or what have you. So there's a lot of sad stories, that he was talking to me about. But that's my goal. I want to try to get him on there, and I just want to put this out. I'm not going to make this take too long. So uh, anyway, I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.